So in this example, it says the time T that it takes for a group of volunteers to construct a house varies inversely as the number of volunteers V. Right away, I'm told that this is an inverse function. There's just a lot of words in this sentence. So I have that the time T varies inversely as the number of volunteers V. So all that's saying is that T varies inversely as V. You've got two methods again. I've done this in another type of video. I would recommend method 1, but there is method 2 that I will briefly discuss at the end. So T varies inversely as V. T equals, because it's inversely, that means V is going to be in the denominator. In the numerator, I'm going to put my constant. I'm going to use K like I've been using the entire time I've been doing these problems. All right, so that's my function. Now for the rest of it. If 20 volunteers can build a house in 62.5 hours, how many volunteers would be needed to build a house in 50 hours? So the 20 and the 62.5 go together. Please don't start jumbling numbers. The 20 volunteers take 62.5 hours, so those must be plugged in together, not with anything else. I'm going to use those two numbers to figure out K. So you're plugging in 62.5 for T and 20 for V. The way that you would get K by itself is you would multiply by the denominator, which is 20. Multiplying 20 to the other side, we get 1,250. This is not my final answer. I found the constant K. So this is just the function that you're going to use. You can star it, you can do whatever, but don't circle it and just stop, because that's not the final answer. The question says, how many volunteers would be needed to build a house in 50 working hours? So how many volunteers means I'm solving for V, and we're given the time, which is 50. I'm done with the previous numbers. I now have my function T equals 1250 over V. So we're going to plug in 50 hours and solve for the number of volunteers. So what I'm going to do is get that variable out of the denominator. You need it out of the denominator in order to actually solve for it. So I'm going to multiply V to the other side first. Now if I want V by itself, I'm going to divide by 50. So we find that there are 25 volunteers if it takes 50 hours. Now, in the previous video with direct variation, I told you there was a way to solve it with proportions. There is also a way to do it here with inverse variations. But again, I recommend method 1 because I find that people get mixed up with the different types of proportions. So my concern is you knowing method 1. However, I will show you how to at least set up method 2. So you're just going to pair up the time with the appropriate volunteers multiplied together on either side of the equal sign. The first piece of information we were given is that 20 volunteers build the house in 62.5 hours. So I'm going to use that as my T1 and my V1, time and volunteers. So make sure those go together. On the other side, we don't know the volunteers, but we know the time, so that's my T2 and my V2. And then you multiply and you divide and you solve for V, and you will get the same thing that we got in the first method.